Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. What is going on, everybody? So, another day. We're talking about rookies. Today, a little bit of defense. We're talking about the risers. Let's get it, man. Let's get it. Talk some risers. We're going to talk a little bit more than we did on Tuesday. Obviously, not as many fallers on the defensive side. So, we like to hear that, especially, anybody in the IDP game, hearing about risers is always a good thing. So, we can get into it right away if you want to, unless you got anything else you want to talk about, my man.
Yeah, obviously we had some more pro days. There was Cincinnati's pro day today, and they said there was over 90 people there from NFL teams. So everybody, at least every team had one representative there, and obviously some teams had multiple. So you had guys there like Sauce Gardner, you had Desmond Ridder, you had Myjai Sanders, Darian Beavers, a couple other guys. I think there's 8 guys in total they expect to be drafted out of Cincinnati, obviously, after their first year, making the playoffs for the college football.
Yeah, it's exciting to see some of these pro days and seeing, if they do better than they did at the combine or if they look worse than they were at the combine. Some people feel more comfortable, when they're at their, stadium they've been playing at or their practice field that they played at for so long. But
I think they did all theirs at their practice field. It looked like it was kind of indoor dome there. There was the Desmond Ridder throw towards the end of the day. He threw it 70 yards in the air, but it was really, really wobbly. So he got it 70 yards, but it wasn't pretty. He kind of wobble back and forth. So he threw it further, supposedly, than Malik Willis did. Malik Willis did 66 yards. So take that for what you will.
I must say I watched that throw by Malik, and I'm gonna say, I'm not as impressed as a lot of people were. It was all right, but I feel like the receiver definitely had to adjust to that throw, almost 10 yards. Like it was pretty. It was a pretty throw, but
it's the same throw that everybody does at the end of their workout too, essentially nowadays. And Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance all did it better. So it's like you shouldn't be too overhyped about it at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that 100%.
The pro day, it's like his pro day itself, we just talked about it really quickly. It was pretty good for the most part. There was, 6 what I would call like really good throws out of, the 70 or so that he threw. After he made the big throw, then they went down in the end zone, did some end zone work and stuff, and he was really good down in that area, besides one that he really sailed on a guy. But he didn't have very, very many bad misses, but there was somewhere the ball placement could have been better. It was kind of in the receiver's back hip pocket as they're running a slant or something like that. So that's obviously something that he's going to have to work on the next level. I would like to see the mechanics still get a little bit better, but obviously he's still a work in progress very much. So even if he goes top 10 in the real NFL draft, like he's probably going to do,
he should. I feel like he should. He's a talented enough prospect to where some quarterback coach or somebody can sit there and work with him. Look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen was definitely a project. He showed how he could. What's up?
Josh Allen was way more polished than he is, obviously, and he has better arm talent. Like there's a whole bunch in it, obviously. Like Wyoming's not like the toughest level of competition, but Wyoming is still a step above Liberty. So
for sure. Yeah, it's the throwing technique that always throws me off with Malik. He almost like throws it from the side, like he throws it like like a hip, like if you were shooting from the hip, if with a gun, like that's kind of what I was like. He throws it like that. It's weird.
It's slowly getting better, and I was kind of hoping by the time we got to the pro day, it was going to look even better, obviously, since he's been working with Quincy Avery, who's, one of the most renowned, especially working with black quarterbacks, because that's who he focuses on, because he really wants to help those guys out and kind of make a name for themselves. So he's worked, obviously, with Justin Fields, no, he didn't work. I don't think he worked with Justin Fields. He worked with Trey Lance last year, worked with Jalen Hurts before that. He worked with Sean Watson. He worked with a couple other guys. Like, they're pretty big, notable names, though, but so prototypically African Americans is what he focuses on, and then the other two, the big name quarterback coaches that kind of help train these guys. It's usually Jordan Palmer and John Beck, who were both former quarterbacks in the NFL themselves. Which is kind of weird when you think about it, like that you're getting trained by these guys that weren't, like that super, super big name, but at the same time, you got to remember, even guys that are like backups in the NFL, they have to be so technically sound just to stay in the league, because they don't have all the natural God-given talent. So those guys probably know more about actually playing the position than, say, like a Lamar Jackson or somebody like that, or, like some of these guys that play like a Brett. We'll just use Brett Favre for example. Brett Favre is probably not the guy you want to teach you quarterback mechanics because he just had natural arm strength and he just kind of did whatever he wanted. You want the guy like a John Beck that had to like be perfectly sound to even stay in the league, even if he wasn't as good himself. But that's kind of a little rant on that without going too far down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. No, it's good. And it's good to hear some of this stuff. I mean, obviously, like you said, we're going to get a lot of people that are going to get overhyped on some of these rookies. It's that time of year where everyone's, especially getting into their rookie drafts or talking about rookies or doing, rookie mocks, which we're going to be doing tomorrow night, which would be a little bit of fun. We're going to have a couple guys come on, and we have about 5 spots left open. If anybody is interested, coming on and shooting the shit with us, talking some rookies and do some drafting, but it'll be interesting.
I will say too, if I had to guess right now, there's probably going to be 2 quarterbacks going in the top 10. So Malik Willis is going to go on the spots, and it really sounds like Kenny Pickett's just going to go 6 to the Panthers, which I don't think is the best use of a 6th overall pick, especially when you could have just drafted Mac Jones or Justin Fields last year in like the same exact spot. But it is what it is at this point in time, and Matt Rule's got to try to save his job. And Matt Rule's not a very good coach without going too far down that rabbit hole. And some people might say, yeah, that maybe they should take Malik Willis. Well, he's not ready to go. Kenny Pickett's more ready to go right away. And Ben McAdoo, the offensive coordinator, does not really have experience with mobile quarterbacks either. So, it's kind of what it is right now. We'll have to see what changes. We've seen most of the quarterback pro days so far. So we saw Carson Strong, who I haven't found film of the replay yet. And then we had Kenny Pickett's. Then we had Malik Willis. Matt Corral was yesterday. Desmond Ridder was today. And then I think Sam Howell, North Carolina, is next week.
So he's somebody that I'm looking forward to watching. Little Sam Howell.
Yeah.
Just, it's a little bit, it's different to like look from his, tape from last year almost. It's not as good as what he had the year before, obviously, with the people that were there playing with him compared to this year. But
it's still good, though. Like the numbers don't look as good, but it's not because he played any worse.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll get into some risers though before we get talking too much off the cliff there.
Off the cliff.
Yep.
Here we go. Let's get into some linebackers.
You want to start with linebackers?
Oh, I just kind of had the list set up however you wanted it. I can change it right now.
If you want to go to DNs real quick, we'll do defense end.
How about we do this real quick? What do you want? Let's do. Do you want to
do defense end first?
I think that's what I had. I must have just had it. So I have edge rushers, then we have defensive tackles, then linebackers. Is that good?
Yep.
Cornerbacks.
Yeah, that's
safeties.
Good. Right. Like I said, you can call these ones defensive ends. You can call them edge rushers. Because I group these guys all together too, whether they're a 3-4 edge or they're hand in the dirt 4-3 defensive end. So the first guy here is Amari Barno. He is 6'4", 246 pounds. So he's on the taller side. In terms of weight, if you're considering him as an actual defensive end, he's on the lighter side there at the 16th percentile. But when you go to the testing metrics, 37-inch vertical, or 93rd percentile, broad jump of 10-11, 99th percentile. The 40-yard dash, he ran a 4.36, which is the fastest time ever by a defensive end or edge player. That's faster than guys like Odafe Owe last year, who ran a 4.38, I believe, even though that was a pro day one. So obviously, out of all the guys that have ever ran at the combine for defensive end or edge rushers, Amari Barno is the fastest of that bunch. His 10-yard split time was a 1.49, which is just flat out ridiculous for an edge player. Typically, for an edge player, if you're in that 1.62, 1.61 marker under, that's considered good. Well, he's already like 0.1, 0.12 faster than that. So that's all awesome. Good. That's always in everything right there. The 40-yard dash, 10-yard split, the 20-yard split is all in the 100th percentile because he's essentially the fastest guy that's ever done it at the combine. The short shuttle was a 4.45, which is real middle of the pack. So that's like the only thing that he wasn't like great at besides the weight. So he's in the 97th percentile athlete for a defensive end. If you move him to, because we kind of don't have that edge position for the RAS score. So obviously the RAS score, once again, is the relative athletic score that is based off of the RAS.football website, and it's Math Bomb at Twitter. He puts all this together, so a big shout out to him. If you run this as a linebacker, he's in the 99th percentile. So either way you slice it, very, very good numbers, and you really can't go wrong there. The only thing I'm going to say with him, is coming into it. He's a guy that's probably sometime on day 3. He's probably going early day 3 now just because of all this testing. I mean, we've seen a guy like Odafe Owe really pulled up into the first round last year with similar type of testing. Is Barno that type of guy at this point in time? Probably not. But if he went like the end of day 2, I wouldn't be like super shocked. He's probably going to be. He's probably a guy that's best suited to play like that 3-4 edge. So he's not at the hand in the dirt, even though he did play with his hand in the dirt sometimes at Virginia Tech. So I'm not too worried about it. I think he can do a little bit of both, but kind of a situational pass rusher. He has the 34-inch arms too, which is something that you look for, being 33 inches or longer from the edge position. So pretty much everything you can look at him physically, athletic testing wise, it's all there. It's just whether or not he puts it together at the NFL level.
Minnesota, baby. Let's go. Send him to Minnesota.
And I'm really interested to see what the Vikings are doing, if they're going to switch into a 3-4 defense or not. Was it getting Zadarius Smith and having their defensive coordinators, the former Broncos defensive coordinator. So I wouldn't be surprised if they switch to 3-4. And if that's the case, then maybe that's the guy you'd draft, early day 3 and kind of develop, bring him along behind like a Zadarius Smith or somebody else like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to see if Minnesota could actually go back to being a defensive team like they used to be. I mean, it's almost now like they're one of the worst. I mean, I wouldn't say worst defenses, but they're on the backside of the defenses. It sucks seeing because that's part of it. I feel like that's how they usually would keep up with teams, not by scoring. It was by being a good defense and scoring with the defense.
And I think even now, like they have an offense that can put up enough points that they can just have a defense that's opportunistic, kind of like how the Chiefs have played in recent years. You just have one that can take advantage and cause turnovers. That could make a big difference too. And that's the difference between losing some of these tight games that they've been losing in recent years too. So he's somebody that's definitely interesting. I think he definitely helped his stock out. Probably maybe before the combine, I think maybe 5th, 6th round pick, probably closer to 4th, 5th round pick at this point in time. Maybe he slips in around 3 if somebody really falls in love with him. And then we're talking about guys that really, really helped themselves out. Trayvon Walker out of Georgia. And these Georgia guys, there's just going to be a bunch of them on this list because Georgia just killed the combine.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's what they tend to do.
Yeah. So
at defense.
So Trayvon Walker, you can probably play him a little bit inside a defensive tackle if you really, really wanted to. But he's 6'5", 272 pounds. So 88th percentile in terms of height. And 75th percentile in terms of weight, both very good there. The vertical was 35.5 inches, which is 87th percentile among defensive ends. Obviously, you're kind of talking about him kind of being one of those tweener guys, but definitely can play both ways. Not kind of like, who was it that we're talking about on the fall? Or DeMarvin Leal, that was kind of like in between. Trayvon Walker's kind of opposite. He can kind of play either way, and it showed in his athletic testing. Broad jump was 10.3, which is 92nd percentile. 40-yard dash was a 4.51, which is the fastest. I believe it was the fastest time ever of anybody that's 270 plus pounds. And his 10-yard split was a 1.54, which is 99th percentile as well. The shuttle was a 4.32, 82nd percentile. The 3-cone was a sub 6.9 at 6.89. So 97th percentile there. Overall, a 99th percentile athlete. He's got very, very long arms at 35.5 inches. So, and he actually knows how to use them if you watch him play at Georgia. So sometimes the long arms doesn't make it happen for some guys, but he knows what he's doing. He's a guy that's going to be a very, very good player. We're talking about a guy that probably moved from like the middle. He's probably a top 15, 20 pick before the combine. It's probably guaranteed top 5 or guaranteed top 10 pick at this point in time.
Damn.
Somebody that's very, very exciting. One of these teams that need an edge rusher, probably going to take him. I mean, I've seen mocks with him mocked as high as 2 to the Lions. So it's definitely possible. I know like a lot of this season, everybody's talking Kayvon Thibodeau and Ian Hutchinson. Hutchinson going like 1, Thibodeau going 2, kind of back and forth throughout the season. Thibodeau's kind of fallen off for one reason or another. Obviously, it only takes one team to actually like him and then draft him pretty high, whether it's the Giants at like 5, whether it's the Jets at 4, whether it's the Texans at 3. But they could also draft Trayvon Walker there at the same time. A guy he's not quite a finished product yet, but he's a very, very good player and a very athletic player that too. So definitely somebody that's going to be pretty interesting to follow, next couple of years.
Yeah. Should be interesting. What? Oh, dang it.
Let me see. I'm going to pull up the other defense. I'm going to pull up defense ends too and see who else I got to mention here real quick.
Obviously, the two guys you just mentioned.
Yeah, we mentioned those two. Boye Mafe out of Minnesota is another guy. He's kind of in that Amaro or the Barno build where he's kind of at 6'3". So he's 6'3", 257 pounds. Ran a 4.53, which is kind of good. Obviously, he's kind of that tweener where he's probably better off at the 3-4 defense. He had a 41.5-inch vertical, 10.5 broad jump. Short shell was a 4.46, and three cone was 4.2 or a 7.42, 21 on the bench reps. So very, very interesting prospect there out of Minnesota. He was a guy that was probably a round 2 pick. He's looking like he has a good chance to go at the end of round 1 now. While we're mentioning guys, I'll just mention David Ojabo out of Michigan too. He tore his Achilles at the Michigan Pro Day, so unfortunately he's probably going to miss his rookie year. So he went from being a guy that's going to go in round 1, probably to a guy that's going in round 2 at this point in time. We did see another guy, Dayo Obadingo, go in round 2 last year for the Colts that had a torn Achilles as well. So it's not out of the question that somebody does draft him in the second round. So obviously that's very unfortunate. Somebody else I'll mention, he wasn't like the most athletic when it came to a 40-yard time. Dominique Robertson out of Miami, Ohio, 6'5", 252 pounds. He ran a 4.72 in the 40, so that wasn't the best, but 41-inch vertical, 10-1 broad jump, a 4.19 short shuttle. Three cone was a 7.19, 25 reps on the bench press. And he's got to move very well in the positional drills as well. So kind of a project there, probably an early day 3 pick overall. Let's see who else we got here real quick. I mean, Jermaine Johnson is just somebody that's been moving up throughout the draft. 6'5", 254 pounds, 4.58 40 time, 32-inch vertical, a 10.5 broad jump, and didn't do any of the other testing. He'll probably do that at Florida State's Pro Bowl or at Pro Day, excuse me. He is a guy that transferred away from Georgia and went to Florida State and had a very productive season, had a very strong Senior Bowl, looked good at the combine, and he's a guy that's probably going to be up there in the top 10 to 15 picks as well. So he's really helped improve his draft stock since prior to the Senior Bowl. I mean, let me see. Another guy that he wasn't at the combine per se, but he had his pro day at Kansas was Kyron Johnson. He was at the Senior Bowl as well. He's only 6 foot, 231 pounds, so not the biggest guy for an edge player. He ran a 4.40, so he's pretty fast there. 39.5-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump, so he's very athletic. 4.38 short shuttle, sub 7, 3 cone at 6.8 or at 6.98. And then 16 reps on the bench. So kind of a developmental player there as well. And then let me go see. Nick Bonito was another one out of Oklahoma. He's kind of one of those tweeners where he's probably going to be better off in a 3-4 system. 6'3", 248 pounds, a 4.54 40 time, 35.5-inch vertical, 10-foot broad jump, a 4.23 short shuttle, a 7.04 3 cone, and then 22 reps on the bench press. So he's not out of Oklahoma. He's probably a guy that's going to go on day 2, I would assume. Sam Williams is another guy that really helped himself out. He's another one of those guys that maybe a little bit of a tweener, but he can probably play the regular 4-3 defensive end as well. He's out of Ole Miss, 6'4", 261 pounds, got the 33 and an 1/8-inch arm, so that's definitely decent there. He ran a 4.46, which was the second fastest at the combine, 32.5-inch vertical, 10.3 broad jump. He did not do any of the other testing, but a guy that definitely helped his stock out athletically wise. He had a very good year at Ole Miss, but he's also a guy that has a lot of off the field question marks too. So he probably goes at the end of day 2 instead of the beginning of day 3. Just kind of depends if somebody really likes him and how, all of his interviews and then things like that kind of play out for him too, obviously, since he has had some of that off the field stuff. I think that's the major ones. Just let me make sure I'm not missing anybody down here at the bottom. So those are the major ones from the combine. And when we're talking about defense ends and edge players, obviously there's some bigger names like Aiden Hutchinson who are up there, but he didn't we thought maybe he tested a little bit better, but the 40 time was a 4.74. The 10-yard split was still like a 1.62, I want to say off the top of my head. His short shuttle was very good at a 4.15, which was the fastest there. 3 cone was a 6.73. So those were both very, very good. So there's a lot of very, very athletic, good defensive ends and edge players in this class.
That's awesome. I like to hear that a lot because edge rushers are some of my favorite guys to watch.
And
Wild.
obviously, it's a great year for defensive line. It's a great year for offensive line. So there's a lot of depth in this class, and there's going to be some very, very good players and some teams that draft very well and end up very good or very well off in terms of getting starters out of these guys.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It's harder to mess up your picks this year. Let's put it that way for NFL teams. Somebody will still do it, though.
It will be the Vikings. Oh, shit.
Hey,
all right.
Say what you want.
Defensive tackle.
Say what you want about Chris Spielman. He actually drafted pretty well. Contract extensions and everything else like that, not so much, but yeah. So in terms of defensive tackle, as we already talked, there's going to be a lot of Georgia guys here. So we got to start off with the freak of nature that is Jordan Davis, 6'6", 99th percentile, 341 pounds to 97th percentile all time. These go back to 1987. So he's a mammoth human to start off with. He had a 32-inch vertical, 88th percentile. But you got to remember, this is a dude that's 340 pounds jumping 32 inches in the air, too. He had a 10-3 broad jump, 99th percentile. And it was the furthest broad jump anybody that's over 320 pounds has ever had it. They recorded at the combine, which is just flat out ridiculous. He beat out Tristan Wirfs' record.
That's crazy.
At that time, that was crazy too. So his 40-yard time was E478, which is just flat out ridiculous for a guy that's 341 pounds. Let's just put it this way. When I was in my prime, I was 16 years old. I was 175 pounds. I ran a 4.7. He pretty much ran the same time as me, and he weighed twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just put that.
A lot of boy to move.
Yeah. He was moving good too. And then the 10-yard split was very good for a defensive tackle, and he 163, which is in the 99th percentile. So he's pretty much in the 99th percentile and everything besides the vertical, which if you factor in his size, he's probably in the 99th percentile to 100th percentile based on his size as well. So he's a 100th percentile athlete at the defensive tackle position, according to Raz, according to his relatively athletic score since. He's a guy probably going to go middle of the first round anyways. This is crazy athletic testing. So he could go top 10, and I don't think anybody would be shocked. Keep in mind, a couple of years ago, we had Derek Brown, who is a similar type of player, not as athletic as Jordan Davis, but he went 8th overall to the Panthers. Why can't Jordan Davis do that? I don't know if it's going to happen just because people don't value defensive tackle quite as much. We got so many other good like edge players and stuff like that in this class. So maybe he falls down a little bit, but he's not getting past like probably 17, 18 in this year's draft. So there's going to be some team that's going to be very happy with him. They're going to bite and they're going to be very pleased, and he's a guy that at the very least, he's a run stuffer, but he offers that athletic upside to be a pass rusher as well. Probably more so than a guy like Derek Barnes did a couple of years ago.
This guy sounds like a monster. He sounds like he's going to kill someone.
He is a monster. So then we got his teammates. Jordan Davis, obviously in the picture, is number 99. His teammate Devontae White is 95 in the picture. These guys both played at Georgia. I will say too, Jordan Davis has 34-inch arms too, so they're pretty long as well. Devontae White, his is only 32 and 5/8, but that's still decent for a defensive tackle. He's 6'2", almost 6'3", 304 pounds. So those are kind of like in the middle for defensive tackles. His vertical was a 29 inches, is 59th percentile, so not bad by any means. But then we get to the rest of the testing, very good. So 9'3" broad jump, 86th percentile. Obviously, it looks pretty bad when his teammate is 40 pounds heavier and even jumped a foot further. But you only get so many freaks of nature. But his 40-yard dash was a 4.77, which was, I believe, the fastest time ever by anybody that was 300 pounds at the combine. So 99th percentile there. The 10-yard split was a 1.6, so 99th percentile there as well. Short shuttle was only a 4.63, which is the 63rd percentile for defensive tackles, but still pretty good. And then the 3-cone was a 7.45, which was 84th percentile. So overall, Devontae White, 95th, 96th percentile athlete at the defensive tackle position. A guy that really helped out his case, he was kind of like that borderline, probably end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Should go at some point during the first round. However, we have seen the NFL kind of devalue defensive tackles, or at least early in round one. Because Christian Barmore probably should have won round one last year, but he didn't. So there is a case to be made that maybe slips in the second round, but still a very good player regardless.
And Jordan Davis, look at this picture right here of him. Who do you think he's trying to tackle right here?
What, in the picture on the screen?
Yeah, in the picture of the screen. Like, so from the picture that I use, what do you think he's actually trying to tackle somebody in this picture?
Yeah, I don't remember who it is.
It's Bryce Young. And Bryce Young, what he said is, I'm very, very happy that I no longer have to play against Jordan Davis. This terrifying human being. Because we all know Bryce Young's a little guy.
Yep.
Jordan Davis is probably like, lunch.
Yeah, something like that.
Who else we got in here?
Yeah,
What
so
other
we get
defensive tackles we got to talk about?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I was just pulling up the stuff for the linebackers real quick. We'll go back to defensive tackles. So the other, okay, since these guys tested so crazy and they're both Georgia guys, like if these guys didn't exist at the combine, everybody would be talking about Travis Jones out of UConn right now. Especially if Jordan Davis didn't exist, because Travis Jones is 6'4", 326 pounds in his own right, 34 quarter-inch arms, 4.92 40-yard dash time, which is very good for a guy that's his size, 28.5-inch vertical, 9.2 broad jump, a 4.49 short shuttle, 7.33 three cone, and he didn't do the bench press at the combine. But if there was no Jordan Davis, everybody would be talking about Travis Jones right now. Travis Jones is a guy that's maybe a borderline first-round pick, probably going to end up in the second round, but he's going to be a very, very good player at the NFL level. He had a very, very good Senior Bowl. He was pretty much unblockable there. So he's a guy to definitely watch out for. Probably doesn't get as much recognition because he played at UConn, and UConn was terrible. So it's not like playing at Georgia where everybody knows who you are.
I agree.
Let's see who else was in here too. Right next to him was Thomas. Thomas Booker out of Stanford. He's 6'3", 310 pounds. Ran a 4.94, 9.2 broad jump, 4.14 short shuttle. Three cone was the same as Travis Jones at that 7.33. So that was all pretty good. Let me go back real quick. Yeah, there's a lot of decent guys here. I think it's going to be a pretty good defensive tackle group. I'll talk about John Ridgeway too, real quick, just out of Arkansas. He's 6'5", 227 pounds. He only ran a 5.3 40 time, but you don't really worry about the 40 time too much with him. He's gonna be, that traditional one technique at the defensive tackle. 28-inch vertical, 8.5 broad jump, 4.69 short shuttle, three cone with 7.9, 25 reps on the bench press. So he's out of Arkansas. I believe he went to Illinois State before that. He kind of transferred from there, went to the SEC level, and he did pretty well there. So he's going to be a guy that goes day 3 and is probably going to serve a very good role at the NFL level, just kind of being that guy that takes up some space and stuff to run. Let's see real quick too. And he looked pretty good in drills too for being as big as he was. Let's see. Who else was there? There's somebody else, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's a pretty good defensive tackle class because you're going to have those guys that I mentioned already. Haskell Garrett out of Ohio State's a guy that had a decent Senior Bowl. The Oklahoma kid, what the heck's his name? Perrion Winfrey out of Oklahoma. He's probably going to go in the second round too. He's 6'4", 313 pounds. He ran a 4.89 40. And that's pretty much all he did because he did that at the combine and he was kind of injured after that. So definitely something that's interesting there. There's a couple different players. Matthew Butler here out of Tennessee, 6'3", about 300 pounds, 5 flat at the 40, 32-inch vertical, 9.4 broad jump. Short shuttle could have been better. 3 cone could have been a little bit better, but a guy that looked decent in drills too. You want to speak about a guy that he wasn't at the combine, but Matt Henningsen, I guess is how you say his name, out of Wisconsin, 6'3", 289 pounds. He didn't run the 40 time. He had a 37.5-inch vertical, 9.11 broad jump, a 4.29 short shuttle, a 7.19 three cone, 22 reps on the bench. So that's a very, very athletic defensive tackle. He's probably a guy. He might fit a little bit better in like a 3-4 system, kind of like not being the nose tackle, but the other guy with their hand in the dirt. But it's a pretty good defensive line class, and I wouldn't be surprised there's a couple other guys that pop up too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys land. I mean, defense. I love defense. Defense definitely wins championships. But
yep.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I mean, especially where to see all these Georgia guys are gonna go.
Okay, so the crazy thing about their defense is they're probably going to have 3 defensive linemen drafted. They're probably going to have 3 linebackers drafted. They're going to have a corner drafted, and then 1 or 2 safeties. So just do the math real quick. 3 plus 3 is 6, plus another one 7, 8. And they might have 9 guys drafted off their defense, and they had like 6 guys drafted off their defense next year. And then next year they have a linebacker and a defensive lineman that are at least going to get drafted too. So over the course of 3 years, you're talking about at least 17 guys getting drafted just off that defense alone.
Talking about depleted, doesn't matter. They're gonna just bring anybody back. They bring people right back in.
Up, so
yeah,
and
re-up.
And the defensive lineman that's there next year supposedly is better than Jordan Davis. He's supposedly better than the 3 guys getting drafted this year. So, which is kind of scary when you think about it, because we're talking about a guy that's probably going to be a top 10 pick, a top 15 pick, and another guy that's going in the first round. And the Carter guy that's still there, he's supposed to be better than all of them.
Yeah, let's get into linebackers.
Yep. So some linebackers. We'll talk about Leo Chanel out of Wisconsin. He's kind of that old school linebacker, the prototypical traditional size. So 6'2", 250 pounds, up towards the higher end once again. He did 34 reps on the bench. I believe that was it. 99th percentile at linebacker position. Vertical vertical was 40.5 inches, 98th percentile. Broad jump 10.8, 97th percentile. 40-yard dash was in 4.53, which is the 96th percentile. And then you factor in the fact that he's bigger than most of these other guys running nowadays too. So it's really, really quick. The 10-yard split was a 1.5, which is 99th percentile. Short shuttle was a 4.24, 82nd percentile. 3-cone was sub 7, so it was a 6.98 and the 84th, 85th percentile. Overall, a 99 percentile athlete according to the RES. So
36 reps on the bench. Man, that dude is going to be, he's going to be throwing some people.
34.
30, I mean, okay, 2 reps. Doesn't even matter. Anything over 30 is ridiculous, in my opinion.
Especially when you got linemen that aren't even doing 30. So very, very strong individual there. He's going to be a very good player. Can't really say too much there. He's either going to go at the end of the first round or the beginning of the second round. I would not be okay. So there's a lot of people talking to Kobe Dean and Devin Lloyd. I wouldn't be surprised if Leo Chanel was the first linebacker off the board. It wouldn't shock me. I think NFL teams are going to be a lot higher on him than they are going to be on Kobe Dean out of Georgia, who's also hurt and has not done any testing. Devin Lloyd might still go ahead of him. We'll just have to see how it all shakes out. But there's probably a group of like 4 or 5 linebackers where they all could go first, second, third, and kind of mix it up. Who goes which place, just depending on which team likes who, So Leo Chanel is definitely in that group. Obviously, if you play IDP, this is probably a name you should know for linebacker, since this is going to be a guy that's going to get drafted very early and probably start early on too. Whether or not right away year 1, it could be. Might not be towards later in the year, but definitely somebody, if you're playing IDP, you probably should know this name, write it down, be familiar with it, and not be surprised when he does pretty well.
Yeah, I think so. I think he will. Especially, coming out of Wisconsin. I feel like a lot of these guys come out of Wisconsin and do pretty well at this position.
He might be the best linebacker they had come out of Wisconsin in a while. And that's saying something, but so we'll get over to the other guy. The other guy is Troy Anderson, who went to lowly Montana State, but he's a guy that was at Senior Bowl. He did pretty good there. He's a very interesting player when you follow his career, because he actually played quarterback and running back before converting to linebacker at Montana State. So it's kind of guy that's very experienced. He knows what offenses look like. He knows what they try to do too. So he's a smart, instinctual player, and he's highly, highly athletic too at the same time. 6'3", 93rd percentile, 243 pounds. 79th percentile. Vertical 36 inches, 83rd percentile. 10.8 broad jump, 97th percentile. 4.42 40-yard dash time, which was one of the fastest at the combine for the linebacker position, 99th percentile all the time. 10-yard split was a 1.49, which is 99th percentile all time. He's a 100% level athlete all time at the linebacker position. This is a guy that's not tiny in stature. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism to him. He's still kind of raw because he's only played the position for like 2 years. But if you tap into this and he turns into what he could be, you're talking about a potential steal for an NFL team. So he's probably he's going to go sometime on day 2. It might be round 2, might be round 3, but he's going to go sometime on day 2. And if he ends up in the right team, in the right system, he's going to be a very good linebacker and somebody that you should know for IDP going forward as well.
You said wide receiver or running back?
So he played quarterback and running back, and then he converted to linebacker after that.
So could you see some team doing some crazy shit with him, like on the 1 or 2 yard line, maybe? I don't know. I mean, why not? If he's got the skill set, why not throw him?
I mean, they could. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen. You could be like the Patriots just do with Mike Vrabel and throw him a pass, like line up at tight end or fullback.
I mean, why not? I mean, why not try to? I mean, if you bring this stuff into your on your team, why not try to do something crazy in your playbook? Like, hey, we know that you've played this position before. I mean, we've seen it with a couple different players. That throwing the ball, like throwing touchdowns. Players that have played quarterback for a little bit, or and then converted to wide receiver or something like that. It just could be interesting. Why not?
Yeah, but for him, it's all learning at this point in time, and it's taking that step up from doing linebacker at the FCS level and then doing it to the NFL level. So he might not be a guy that does it right away at year 1. It might be in year 2. It might be in year 3. But he has all the athleticism in the world to make things happen, and he has all the athleticism in the world to stay on the field. And supposedly, based on what they said at the Senior Bowl, he has all the coverage instincts too for a guy that's barely played the position. So the upside of a guy like Troy Anderson is almost to the moon.
Yeah, I'm starting to agree with you. I mean, I'm almost liking if he falls to a team a little later, just because of the fact that, I mean, they could see this and just be like, oh shit, no one's going to see this coming. And they just throw him in there. There are players that, I mean, we've seen that many times with players that later in the draft, they get picked and all of a sudden they come out, or something happens to a player in front of them and they step into that position and they just dominate. So,
even if you look at some of the best linebackers in the league, or that have been over the last couple of years, Fred Warner was drafted in the 2nd, 3rd round. Bobby Wagner was drafted in like the 2nd, 3rd round. Darius Leonard was a 2nd round pick out of an FCS school as well. It's not like this is a mold that we haven't seen work before. Doesn't mean it's always going to work, but he has a very, very good chance, a very high upside at the very least. So that's definitely something so those are the main 2 for the linebacker position that really helped themselves out. Let me go through real quick. Chad Muma is another name to know out of Wyoming too. So another smaller school guy, 6'3", 240 pounds. He ran a 4.63 at the 40-yard dash. So that wasn't the best, but all his other testing was really good. Excuse me. So he had a 40-inch vertical, 10.9 or a 10.9 broad jump, 4.28 short shuttle, a 7.06 3 cone, and 27 reps on the bench. So Chad Muma out of Wyoming, probably not a guy that's going to like make that big impact day 1, but a guy that you should probably know going forward. Couple other guys, Channing Tindall out of Georgia, 6'2", 230 pounds, essentially 4.47 at the 40-yard dash, 42-inch vertical, 10.9 broad jump, 4.18 short shuttle, a 7.25 3 cone, and he's going to be a guy very, very athletic, but a little raw at this point in time. So he's going to be a slow burn. So he's going to get on an NFL team, kind of learn everything, and then probably help you out later on. Christian Harris out of Alabama, pretty athletic there as well. 6 foot, just shy of 230 pounds, 4.44 40 time, 44 or 34.5 inch vertical, 11 foot broad jump. So he's got some of the athleticism there. We'll see if he does anything else at the Alabama Pro Day. Probably a guy that put himself in contention to be end of round 1, beginning of round 2. He was a guy that people were very, very high on coming into this season, though. Let's see if there's any other big ones. Devin Lloyd is kind of somebody that's always been up there, but his 40 time is a little bit slower than we kind of expected. Another guy that's kind of interesting. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to get drafted. Malcolm Rodriguez out of Oklahoma State. Only 5'11", 232 pounds. Ran a 4.52, 39.5 inch vertical, 10 foot broad jump. That's all the testing he did at the combine. But he's a former safety, so he has some coverage instincts. Probably a developmental guy, but somebody to look out for the future. And then another guy that wasn't at the combine, Sterling Weatherford out of Miami, Ohio. 6'4", 224 pounds. Did very well at the Senior Bowl. Ran a 4.6 at the combine. 36-inch vertical, 9'9" broad jump, a 4.33 short shuttle, a 6.93 3 cone, 21 reps on the bench. That he did all that at his pro day. Obviously, he's a former converted safety as well, so he does have pretty good coverage instincts. So I would not be surprised if he's somebody that kind of pops a couple years down the road as well. So those are kind of the main ones as of right now. Obviously, some guys that are going to be able to step in right away, but there's also some very, very good high-end developmental linebackers in this year's class as well.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. You got me excited about this Troy Anderson, man. I'm going to be doing a little bit more research on him probably tonight, maybe this weekend a little bit. He sounds like someone I'm going to be excited about, even though he went to a smaller school or whatever like that. But what you're saying now is I'm going to get a discount on somebody who could potentially be a star.
And when you're talking in IDP leagues, you don't have to draft linebackers very high. Even when you're drafting rookie drafts for IDP leagues, and usually with IDP leagues, you have a couple extra rounds at the end too. A lot of times it's like 5 rounds. You probably can get Troy Anderson in the 5th round, and like say 2 years from now, he might be a stud linebacker and getting you 20 points a game. And then if he is at that point in time, you spend a 5th round pick on him. At the very least, you can probably trade him for a 2nd round pick.
No, I agree. That's why you got me thinking on like that. This is what I like about some of these IDP guys is like you can get crazy steals in drafting late, especially in like a startup draft. Like you and I were kind of talking, and you were kind of helping me out because I was taught a little differently with IDP, and that it's more important than you think it is. And honestly, I think that strategy is 100% wrong. I think that what you've kind of taught me now is like you can find, I mean, obviously there's going to be guys out there that score huge points, but I mean, you can find, receivers or something like that at those positions that you could get more value for trading, and you could find an IDP guy out there that you like that you could trade. It's one of those wide receivers or something like that, and then get them in, a bargain.
And the biggest thing about IDP is you can usually find like a Mike linebacker, like last year, Anthony Walker, like you can get him off the waiver wire in Dynasty. And the dude was a starting Mike linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. So you just say you picked him up off the waiver wire, he would get like 18 points a game. Then all of a sudden you're trading him around for a 2nd round pick. And you can do that a lot of times in IDP. Like people just don't value some guys as highly. And like the biggest thing is just finding the guy that's going to be out there on the field the most. Because if you can get a linebacker in IDP that's going to be out there for 100% of snaps or close to it, they're going to put up points. That's all it is at the end of the day. Yes, Darius Leonard might score 2 more points a game than them, but it's kind of like when you're talking about streaming quarterbacks, or quarterback's probably the easiest one, just because like, okay, so the difference between like quarterback 8 on the season and the quarterback 14 is not that much. And if you're streaming they said you could, if you stream quarterbacks right all year, the top quarterback finishes, they combine to be like quarterback 6 or 7 on the year. So is it obviously you're going to have weeks where it doesn't pay off, but
there's like, I think they said something like 43 to 46 quarterbacks that finish at the quarterback 1 position overall, so overall there's 43 quarterbacks that will finish in a week in the top 10 or 12,
So top 12 throughout the season is what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get into some corners.
What's up, TD? What's up, man? Appreciate you coming through. Yeah, let me get this up. Bam. I think I'm going to try to figure out another way. If I had another screen, it would be dope.
So
someday.
Tariq Woolen is a very interesting one. He's out of UTSA, so University of Texas, San Antonio. He is very, very large for a corner. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. So 99th percentile for height, 95th percentile for weights. There's only a couple bad things you can say about him. His bench rep was 12, 42nd percentile, but I don't worry too much about that with corners.
I don't either.
42nd or 42-inch vertical, 99th percentile. Broad jump, 10-11, 96th percentile. He ran a 4.26 at 6'4", 205 pounds. That is not human. 99th percentile. We just call that 100th percentile. 10-yard split, 147, 98th percentile. So the short shuttle, it was a 4.29, 41st percentile, and 3 cone was a 7.1. We'll see if he gets those numbers a little bit better at his pro day. Those below average, so he's very fast, but he doesn't move quite as well laterally, at least in terms of speed. But we seen guys at the NFL level, if they're fast enough, most notably Eric Stokes for the Packers last year, right? He was not good moving laterally, but he's got enough speed that when he flips his hips and he turns and he gets behind a little bit, he has enough recovery speed to make up for it. So a guy like Turek Woolen could do that same type of thing. It is kind of notable. He's, he believe, a former wide receiver turned cornerback.
He's gotta be
So,
at that size.
you don't usually see it that way, but apparently maybe his hands weren't that good. I don't know exactly what the story was, but 97th percentile all-time athlete. He's got 33 and 5/8 inch arms. A guy that's a very, very intriguing prospect. He's probably going to end up going in the second round just because he had crazy measurables. He's not going to be a guy that should be starting for an NFL team day one, but a very, very strong developmental prospect. And if he puts it all together, watch out, because you don't get guys like this don't grow on a tree.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, even if he, like you said, even if from what we're thinking, like a guy that went from wide receiver to corner, maybe potentially because he has bad hands. Well, I don't really care about that. I mean, interceptions are dope and everything like that, but knockdown passes is dope, tackles is dope. I mean, the fact that this guy has the speed to flip his hips and just go.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be throwing this guy's way just because of that reason. He's been keeping up with the
just put it this way.
as well.
One of the best corners we've seen in the last 10 to 20 years was a wide receiver in college for most of his college career. That's Richard Sherman. And Richard Sherman was nowhere near as athletic as this guy is. Obviously, Richard Sherman probably has better coverage instincts, but even if you look at the RAS, so here's the RAS score comps for Tariq Rowland as a cornerback. Jalen Ramsey, Marshawn Lattimore. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, they are.
Melifanu out of Syracuse last year. Obviously, he's big in size and he was kind of athletic. And Jamel Dean, who's my boy for Tampa Bay, that's been a very, very good corner too. So you got three really good corners there. A rookie that got hurt last year for the Detroit Lions. That's pretty good company to be in. Like, I'm not gonna lie. So if he can do just a little bit of that, he'll be he could end up being a pretty decent corner at the NFL level. Obviously, it's going to depend where he goes, the scheme, and all that, and kind of how he gets coached up. But a guy that has pretty high upside.
Yeah, I agree. I'm watching some more film.
Yep, and he's a guy that had a pretty good Senior Bowl too, so that's definitely something to keep in mind there. The other guy we have here is Kalen Barnes, who almost set the 40-yard dash record at the combine. Yeah, he's only 5'11", 183 pounds, so it's not as impressive that he ran as fast as he did as Tariq Woolen, because Tariq Woolen is obviously huge. 22 pounds heavier, 5 inches taller. So he's 66th percentile in terms of height, 20th percentile in terms of weight. So nothing special there for corners, but we're not too worried about that. 31 and 3/4 inch arms, so his arm size is fine there. We're not worried about that, him being 5'11". 40-yard dash, 4.23. 99th percentile, second fastest all time behind John Ross. This is a guy that can fly. This is a guy that he's going to get drafted somewhere. I don't even know where he's going to get drafted at this point in time. I'm messing around with some PFF mocks, and they got him way down the list, like where he'd be going like a 7th round pick. I guarantee he's going to get drafted at least in the 5th round, just because that speed number, somebody's going to draft that, because you can't teach speed. It's not possible. 10-yard split. So his 10-yard split actually is kind of interesting. It's a 1.53, which is 87th percentile all time. Not bad by any means, but it shows that as he was running, he picked up speed even. So he's going down the field running with these wide receivers. He's going to get faster. So I really haven't seen too much tape of him at Baylor, if I'm being honest. I think he's still probably a little bit raw at this point in time, but he's probably a guy that goes early day 3 just because of that number. That number, you can't teach that speed.
Yeah, you cannot. Yeah, you can't teach speed.
And it's not like he's a tiny guy either. And what you've seen out of the NFL draft this year, a lot of these Baylor kids ran fast, because when Matt Rule went to Baylor, that's what they did. They recruited guys that were really good track stars that also played football. Most of them were 3-star football guys, but they were fast as heck in track. So when you're looking at all these really fast guys this year, you got Kalen Barnes, ran a 4.23. You got Taquan Thornton, the wide receiver, ran a 4.28. They're both out of Baylor. The running back ran a 4.2 or a 4.43. The safety JT Woods ran a 4.36. they had a lot of fast guys because they all have track backgrounds. And then they're like, well, if we're fast, we can teach them to play football better, essentially. So that was kind of their philosophy. And you're going to see that this year and probably the next year or two coming out of Baylor, where they have these really fast guys. So don't be surprised when these Baylor guys are running fast for the next year or two still. So
that's awesome.
Definitely somebody that you're going to have to keep an eye on, see where he goes, probably early day 3. If somebody's really crazy, they might draft him day 2 just because of that speed number. We've seen it before.
Well, man, just, if you're fast enough like that,
Yep.
keep up with the receiver, watch his fit, watch what he's doing with his head, and get your hand up. Get your hand up. At least make sure you're turning around too, because you don't want to get that flag.
Yep. So if Al Davis was still alive, he'd probably be a first-round pick. So let's just put it that way. Let's see the other corners that we do have. So we'll just mention Ahmad Saras Gardner real quick. He's 6'2", 190 pounds, 33.5-inch arms. He was a guy we knew was going to be a first-round pick either way, but he ran a 4.41 at the combine, so he's going somewhere between top 5 to top 10, pretty much guaranteed now. Whether or not that's completely warranted may be a different story, but that is what it is. Alontae Taylor out of Tennessee is kind of interesting too. 6 foot, 199 pounds, 32.25-inch arms. 4.36 40 time, 34.5-inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump at the combine. So a guy that tested pretty athletically. I wasn't like overly impressed with him at the Senior Bowl, but obviously you can teach some of that and it can get better. But somebody that worth mentioning that he did test rather well. Let's see what's here. Because there's a lot of guys that ran fast this year. There's a lot of guys that ran 4.4 quicker at the corner position.
David said Jerry Jones is still alive.
Yeah, he is. He still is. Another guy out of Texas too, Josh Thompson. He's going to be a day 3 guy, but I think he's a little interesting here at 5'11", 194 pounds. 31.125-inch arm, so that's decent there. 4.40 at 37.5-inch vertical, 10.7 broad jump, a 4.13 short shuttle, a 6.84 3-cone, and 15 reps on the bench. So he's somebody I'd be interested in, like as a developmental core, probably late day 3. Josh Williams is another guy out of Fayetteville State. Looked very good at the Senior Bowl. 6'2", 195 pounds. 32.75-inch arms, a 4.53 40 time, 36-inch vertical, 10.4 broad jump. So you're looking at those numbers, they don't stand out, but this is a guy that's a little bit bigger too. Obviously, he's not a Tariq Woolen fast, but is a bigger corner that stood his own at the Senior Bowl. Has the versatility of maybe playing safety at the NFL level, maybe playing corner. Some teams are going to be pretty interested in that, and there was some pretty good reviews on him coming out of the Senior Bowl. Kyrie Elam out of Florida, he ran a 4.39. That's really all he did there at the combine. So guy that was kind of borderline first-round pick probably goes at the end of the first round, maybe the early second round. Helped himself out there just a little bit. But that's pretty much it. I mean, there wasn't really, as we mentioned with the fallers, not a lot of guys that really killed their combine, but some guys that really solidified, hey, this guy is actually as fast as we think they are. In some cases, faster when you're talking about guys like Barnes and Woolen here.
Another team that really needs to step it up and revamp their defense is freaking Seattle. Let me get back to that. Ground and pound, and let's see what they do this year. What do you think your team's going to do this year, the Texans?
Just add talent. That's all you got to do.
And, well, the crazy thing is like, I had people asking, or I saw a question, like what are the Texans going to do now, like at quarterback? It's just like, I think Mills is good enough. I mean, why wouldn't they just let Mills, develop Mills another year? And if it doesn't,
he's not the answer, but
I know he's not the answer, but just develop him, let him play. At least he could be a serviceable backup quarterback on your team if you bring somebody else in. But just play, build around that team. Bring in players that you need. Defense, offensive line. Offensive players. I mean, Cooks is awesome, but Brandon Cooks, but he's older and he's not going to be there forever.
No, I think he gets traded at some point too. But obviously, drafted Nico Collins last year, he didn't really do too much.
But he's not terrible. He's a decent receiver. I mean, he could develop too.
Yeah, but he's kind of banged up for a little while too. But I think you had a wide receiver this year. You had some a little bit on more in that offensive line. The offensive line is not bad at this. When he's healthy, it's not bad. Larry Tunsil is very good. Obviously, he got hurt last year. He just restructured his contract, so it looks like he's going to stay around. Titus Howard didn't develop into a tackle. He's been a decent guard at this point in time. Justin Britt was an okay center last year. If you kind of get those other two spots in line, the offensive line's not bad. Maybe Brevin Jordan's the answer, tight end. Maybe he's not.
I like him.
He looked okay at times last year, but he didn't play a lot of snaps. And he can't block at this point in time. Like, he's just not good at it. So obviously running back is what it is. Like running back doesn't matter that much at the NFL level. You can just plug in guys pretty much. You can find running backs any given year, any given draft. And
that's the Patriots.
Obviously the defense wasn't that bad last year. Like when you look on paper, it looks a lot worse than it was, but they were actually pretty good. It's just the offense put them in so many bad situations too. But there was a lot of development on that defense. Jacob Martin and Jonathan Greenyard, both playing defensive end, both played rather well. And Greenyard was a big surprise last year. I didn't think he was ever going to be that good. Obviously, Roy Lopez, 6th-round pick at defensive tackle last year, played very, very well. Linebackers are okay. Corners, the defensive backs are going to need help there. So, like, I mean, if Kyle Hamilton's there at 3, you might as well just take him and build around the defense there. But we'll just have to see. Speaking of Kyle Hamilton, we'll get into some safeties.
Let's do it.
Kyle Hamilton will not be the name that's on this list because he tested okay at the combine, but nothing that, like, we knew he was a top 5 pick, top 10 pick anyway. So it's not like there was nothing where he really could have done that really changed our mind on that, unless he just came out and tested terrible. It's not like he was going to help himself. So let me grab these RAS scores here real quick too.
Raspberry scores.
Yeah. So Daxton Hill. This is a guy. He's going to go in the first round. I can pretty much guarantee you that right now. So he's 6 foot, which is 57th percentile for the safety position, 190 pounds. Not the biggest weight, but not a big deal there at this point. It's not like he's tiny. A vertical is 33.5 inches, so that's 30th percentile. Broad jump was 10-1, 61st percentile. Now we'll get into all the good. 40-yard dash, 4.38, 98th percentile. 10-yard split is a 1.51, 97th percentile for safeties. Short shuttle, 4.06, 93rd percentile. And the 3-cone, 6.57, 99th percentile. This is a guy that can play safety. He can play. Honestly, he can play. There's a pretty good chance that he gets drafted by the Chiefs and replaces Tyrann Mathieu. That would be a very, very good role for this guy. He can play a little bit in the nickel. He can play a little bit at safety. He can kind of move around a little bit. 32.25-inch arms. He's not going to be undersized playing nickel. Some team might actually just draft this guy to play nickel corner. I wouldn't be surprised. Very, very good career at Michigan. Obviously, we've seen Michigan make it to the college football playoffs this year, and he was a big factor on their defense. So I'm not going to be surprised when he goes at the end of the first round. Very, very worst case, he goes at the beginning of the second round. But, a guy that was probably clearly in the second round, but now going in the first round. So there's a lot of teams that could be interested in this guy, and he's very, very versatile. So he could go back and play a traditional free safety if you really, really wanted to. But probably a waste of his talent at that point if you're doing that. If you could kind of have him move all over kind of that Tyrann Mathieu role, I think would be a great fit for the Chiefs, who just so happen to have 2 picks in the first round now.
Yeah, they do. Because
they trade Tyreek Hill away. One of those picks, they can draft a wide receiver. And the other one, they could draft Daxton Hill. And hey, it's not that bad. I know they just signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling to the team.
Understand that. I don't understand that signing.
I think it's silly because now instead of having one McCole Hardman on your team, you have 2 big, fast guys that can't catch.
I don't understand that.
But Patrick Mahomes is going to be very pissed off this year when he throws deep balls and they just get dropped. But that's all another story. But let's not act like Tyreek Hill had the best hands in the world either.
No, I agree. He wasn't.
He had a lot of
biggest
drops, a lot of concentration drops too. So obviously, part of the game is getting open and everything else. I don't think Marquez Valdez-Scantling is that good of a wide receiver, but that could be a whole nother debate for a different day too. Definitely not worth $10 million a year, but what wide receivers are getting paid. Is he half as good as Christian Kirk at $21 million? Probably. But there still could have been, he had better options available. Let's put it that way. But yeah, Daxton Hill definitely. I don't even know if we can go that far right now.
I'm so sad. He's never going to play again.
Oh, he'll play.
Yeah, he'll play on
Daxton Hill's
special
very
teams.
interesting there. And then the other safety we had was a guy that nobody was really talking about coming into the combine, is Nick Cross out of Maryland. I can't remember where he transferred from, but he transferred into Maryland. I know that for sure. 6 foot, so he's 50.
He played at a lot of colleges. I was actually looking for pictures for him today, and he looks like he played at a lot of different colleges.
Yeah, because I think he's at Penn State. I think he went to Penn State first, then he transferred somewhere else, and then he transferred to Maryland.
You're right.
So he moved around a little bit, but obviously he was productive at Maryland, was productive wherever he played before that. I'm guessing he got buried on the depth chart at Penn State, and he left there. That's the reason he left there. Can't really fault a guy like that. 212 pounds, so 88th, 89th percentile in terms of weight for the safety position. So, sometimes you get concerned about that, but the way this guy moved, there's no concern there. It throws the weight around pretty good. 37-inch vertical, almost 80th percentile there. 10-10 broad jump, 95th percentile. 40-yard dash was a 4.34 for a safety. That's 212 pounds. That's very good. 10-yard split was a 1.46, 99th percentile. Overall, he's a 99th percentile athlete at the safety position. This is a guy that is far from a finished product. Obviously, we talked about him moving around, but a guy probably going to go early day 3, kind of develop into something. Maybe he fits your system, maybe he doesn't. At the worst, you have the worst case scenario with Nick Cross is you have a guy that's probably going to be a very good gunner on special teams. And if you develop him into safety and it turns out all right, hey, look, you guys starting safety.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So,
sorry, I was giggling. My girl was texting me. She was texting me our outro. She's the other day, she's like, I could pretty much do your show for you. She's like, I know your intro. I know your outro. She was making fun of me. So shit was so funny.
Yeah, so he's definitely somebody that's very interesting. We got a couple other safeties here too. Nobody really disappointed at safety. Obviously, guy that I didn't think was going to declare this year, Dane Belton out of Iowa. My dad's obviously a big Iowa fan. 6 foot, 205 pounds, 31-inch arms. The 4.43 40 time, which was one of the faster ones among the safety group. 36.5-inch vertical was pretty good as well. 10.3 broad jump. Short shuttle was a 4.24, which was very good as well. He's a guy that I can't remember exactly what position they call it at Iowa, but like at the NFL level, when there's 2 safeties there and there's one kind of safety that kind of plays down in the box, it's kind of like a sub linebacker. That's essentially what he did at Iowa, because they played a whole bunch of like 3. So let's see, 4.25 essentially. And he was just kind of like the undersized linebacker, but like the extra safety. That's a lot of what he did. So probably a guy that's going to be good around the box. Was decent in coverage in college. Probably a guy that's going to go 5th, 6th round, honestly. Tested very well, so that's going to help him out quite a bit. A guy that I thought should have stayed in college for another year, though. But he tested well enough that I'm not too concerned about it there. One of those Baylor guys that actually didn't run the 40 time was Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. Yeah, 35-inch vertical. The short shuttle, the 3-cone was good, and 16 wrench on the bench. I'm not sure if he got hurt at the combine. Is that why he didn't run the 40 maybe? JT Woods, like I said, ran quick. He tested well, but he's got grandma hips, so I'm not drafting him. He does. Like, you just watch it. He's the guy that almost tripped over his feet too.
Oh, so, yeah, you're telling me about that.
Leon O'Neal. Okay, so I just mentioned Leon O'Neal too. So he's kind of a faller because we saw his 40 time at Texas A&M was supposedly a 4.7, which is really, really bad for safety, obviously. All those Texas A&M pro day times seem awfully slow to me for whatever reason. So I don't know how much, I really put into that. Lewis Seen out of Georgia is another guy that rose pretty big here. 6'2", 202 pounds, 32.5-inch arms, a 4.37, 40 time, 37-inch vertical, 11.1 broad jump. Didn't do any of the 3-cone short shuttle or bench though. But he's another guy kind of in that Daxton Hill territory, who was probably a 2nd-round pick, has a decent chance to go at the end of round 1, at the very least at the end of, or the beginning of day 2. So when you're looking at a safety position, let's just put it this way. We got Kyle Hamilton going first, and then it's probably going to be Lewis Seen and Daxton Hill going right after that. They'll probably go towards the end of the 1st round, beginning of the second round. The order those two go in might change, but those probably the top 3 safeties overall for this class and how they're going to get drafted. Let's see here real quick. To Percy Butler out of Louisiana Lafayette, where he ran a 4.36, had a 10.3 broad jump too as well. I really don't know much about him, but obviously he was invited to the combine, so he could obviously be a lot worse. And then Tyson Anderson out of Toledo. I've seen some people list him at safety, some people list him at corner. 6'1", 209 pounds, 33-inch arms. He ran a 4.36 40 time, 10.3 broad jump, 4.28 short shuttle, a 6.64 3 cone. So pretty athletic there. So maybe you can do a little bit of both. That's kind of what we're looking for, or what we're looking at least in terms of the safety position. So a lot of guys that did test pretty well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, all we can do is hope and pray that they go to the right team for what their talent is, you know, and they get used correctly. Daxton Hill is somebody I'm going to have to be looking some tape up on too. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some other guys out there too. I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see where guys land.
And I mean, like, I don't think when you're talking about big time IDP defensive backs, this might not be that class because you're looking for the guys that are going to get a bunch of tackles. I don't think Lewis Singh could do that. He can kind of play both safety spots. Daxton Hill could be around the line a little bit if he's in that slot role. Kyle Hamilton can do a little bit of everything, so he's probably just going to be okay. But there's not a lot of those guys that are, you know, that strong safety that's going to play near the box and going to get you 6 to 8 tackles a week. Not a lot of those guys, but some very athletic guys in this class. So maybe not the best safety group for IDP, but definitely some guys you can take a shot on too.
Wow. It's an awesome way to finish out our segment that we have. Obviously, we're going to probably be talking more about rookies as the time goes through. I mean, you're going to see some more, you know, a little bit more pro days coming out here and there. And then once we get to, obviously, the draft, we'll be talking about more rookies, obviously, with their landing spots. We are going to be doing some other stuff too. We're going to do some highlight reels. I guess it's not really highlight reels. It's going to be more like a film room, so you can kind of see their highlights and lowlights. It'll be a little bit of everything. And tomorrow, we're going to start doing this on Fridays. I don't know if you're cool with it, where we just do, you know, some kind of mock draft. So it'll be the rookie, or if we can mix it up, you know, obviously there's going to be different things. We can throw one with IDP. We can just do like a, you know, like a small, like 10 player, you know, full mock, you know, something like that too. We'll get into it. We'll do a couple things on Friday, but some other shows are gonna be coming out. Obviously, Sundays we do our SuperDraft Sundays, and we're gonna be doing some NASCAR contests. I'm gonna have to talk to Eric. Yeah, it's just fun because I mean, I'm getting more into it too. The other day, actually, when I was driving home, I had it like on in my car, which, you know, isn't really legal, but this is more just trying to listen to it and see what was happening, because, you know, anybody like me, I kind of like to watch my fantasy and see what's going on, or DFS and kind of see what's going on, which is stupid, especially in DFS because it or in NASCAR, because it changes so often with pit stops and stuff like that. But I mean, it's fun, and with Andrew, it's made it a lot more fun too. So yeah, Sundays is going to be our NASCAR show, and then I'm going to be trying to get some contests going to where we can play for cash. And then, yeah, we'll be talking about some other shows coming out here soon. But, you know, I always appreciate you being here. I always appreciate everyone else showing up and watching the show. Get out and share it. Make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up button on everything. Not just on my channel. Make sure you get over on Craig's channel too, and at least hit the thumbs up button, because, you know, at least it helps the algorithm a little bit, especially on shows like this, where you can use this, you know, all off season to, you know, go back and listen to it as a reference. So make sure you're getting out there and sharing it. Yeah. Tell them where to find you at, Craig. Oh yeah, my bad. Go ahead.
Then tomorrow we had the rookie mock draft. So if anybody is interested in joining that with us, make sure you get a hold of one of us, because we have a couple more spots left. That should be a lot of fun. If you are participating and you want to jump on the stream, even if it's just popping on right before your pick, coming on for 5 minutes, then coming off, and then back and forth, or if you want to stay on the whole time, definitely more than welcome to do that as well. That's going to be a lot of fun. I think there's going to be a lot of talking points, especially when we don't know landing spots too.
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to throw. I mean, if you don't want to throw your camera on too, you don't have to worry about it. You can come on, just throw your volume on, so we can just hear you, listen to what your thoughts on your pick, or you can debate somebody else's pick or anything like that. Talk shit or get upset. Obviously, like that was what I was going to take. It's always interesting.
You get to watch me tilt when Dan takes my pick right before me. I think you're right before me too, but I'm worried. Yeah. We did a couple of mocks last year. It's like Dan and I were like back to back. We just kept taking each other's guys, so I know it's going to happen. I know it's
going to be fun. It's going to be. It's more. Here's the thing. It's more fun when we can get more people live on the show, because then we can get more reactions. We can get more thoughts from everybody, because no one's going to think the same on every player. So it's going to be interesting. Right, like, oh, why'd you draft him there? Well, obviously it's because I like him better than you do. Well, shit. Okay.
Yeah. Especially right now when we don't know landing spots, we haven't seen all the pro days and everything else too. And it's going to be very interesting to see where people take quarterbacks, especially because I'm not going to say too much, but I think Breece Hall and Malik Willis are going to go 1-2. I purposely picked the 103 pick because I think that's where the first decision point in the entire draft starts.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think you got about what I'll call 3 running backs that probably go in the first round. You got about 8 wide receivers, 1 quarterback. So that's probably the first round, the first 12 picks right there. But kind of seeing if another quarterback sneaks up in there, where the quarterbacks go in the second round, where some of these other quarterbacks go. Because I think there's 10 wide receivers, and then it kind of falls off at wide receivers. So when I'm looking at least right now in terms of rookie mocks, you got Malik Willis there just for the rushing ceiling. You've got the 3 running backs. You got 10 wide receivers or so, and then it kind of falls off again. And then once those 10 wide receivers are gone, maybe that's kind of where you start to chasing the running backs again, whether it's a Rashad White, whoever else you think is going to be up there in terms of draft capital, because that's the biggest thing right now. We're just guessing who's going to be up there in draft capital because we don't really know. Like after the first 3 running backs, it's kind of wide open.
I like me some Rashad White. So anyways, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. 8:05 Eastern time tomorrow. So yeah, if anybody wants to hop on, we got, from what I've seen last, we have about 5 spots left. So we'll get them filled before tomorrow. But yeah, let's get out of here. Tell them where to find you at, brother.
Yep. So you can find me on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. You can find me on YouTube at Coach Craig Sports. Excuse me.
Good.
You can find me on patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports. I am doing a lot of stuff for the NFL draft right now. So if you want to donate to the Patreon, you can get access to my spreadsheet that has all the metrics from the combine, from the pro days. I'm updating them as I get as much information as possible. Obviously, pro days are happening every day, but all the information is always updated to pull over to there. But it's a whole other story. And then last night I was working on my different sheets that I do have too. So I got 22 wide receivers for NFL draft prospects, 52 of them. The name of the player, are they a redshirt sophomore, junior, senior, whatever. Their height and weight as up to date as possible. What the recruiting was like when they came out of high school. So were they a 2-star recruit? Were they a 3-star recruit, 4-star, 5-star, not ranked? I have every year of college production that they have in there in terms of the ones that you can find. Someone went to like junior colleges, like for the first couple of years. So I don't have those in, but I have a note like, hey, this guy went to like East Mississippi Community College, Dante Rio Drummond. And so he was there the first 2 years. And then the other 3 years were at Ole Miss or whatever. So I have that there. As I'm watching film, I put the games that I watch, pros and cons for each of these guys, kind of give you guys a little bit more information. So definitely check that out as well. That's part of the Patreon. I will get that all posted up there in the next couple of days. I'm going to be watching more film probably later tonight. I think there's definitely some interesting guys in this class. And I think there's a lot of different opinions out there, especially about some of these guys. And you'll see it on Twitter. Like there's 2 wide receivers I don't particularly like that I've seen people like on Twitter, Jalen Tolbert and Romeo Doubs. So everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I mentioned the things that I see and help you make your decision one way or another. And you can all, obviously, each and every one of us is capable of going onto YouTube or wherever we get our film from and watching a 5 to 10 minute video, watching a player and getting our own opinion from it too as well. But it's also helpful to see what somebody else has said and kind of look for little things too.
And that's why we're going to get the highlight, low light reels out basically. So you can get a little bit more in-depth opinions other than just seeing this guy do amazing things, and all of a sudden you're like, well, this guy doesn't do anything wrong. I want him now. But this is why we have the coach on the channel, because he's the man. He does his scouting, and he's the unbelievable.
So, yeah, by the time we get to the NFL draft, I'll have the film watched on all 52 of those wide receivers, probably all the tight ends, all the running backs, and all the quarterbacks. Maybe I'll get to some offensive linemen. Hopefully get to some offensive linemen. We'll see.
And David's saying Atlanta's taking a QB, and you already know who I think is going to be landing there, even though you said you don't think it's a good spot, but I'm going to keep riding with it. I know it's going to happen. Malik Willis to Atlanta.
I don't think it's a good situation, but
it's going to happen, though. Yeah. What else is not a good situation? Drafting a tight end at number, what was that? Was that 4?
Yep. Highest overall, but
yeah. I mean, it's not. Honestly, I mean, it's not like he's not a bad tight end. You know, he's a good tight end, obviously, for a 1,000-yard receiver, but still.
But Atlanta might be better off just moving back, honestly. Like at this point in time, they don't have much on their team, so they might as well trade back, pick up more assets over this year's draft, next year's draft, and then kind of go build from there.
So you can find me everywhere: JCMoneyDesign, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. You can find me on SuperDraft, and you find me on Sleeper. So anywhere you want to find me, I'm going to be working on building the website here soon. Craig and I have a lot of things going on, so just keep in touch with us. Keep on this channel, because this channel is going to grow pretty fast. You know, within you know, I'm hoping by the summer this channel's booming. So with what we've got going on already, I mean, the information we're providing is not cookie cutter. It's not it's not just thrown back in your face after you've already heard it on Twitter, you know. So that's what we're here for. We want to make sure you guys are
I'm gonna sit around. I'm gonna sit around and tell you Kyron Williams is Austin Eckler, because he's not.
Agreed. Agreed. Anyways, let's get out of here. We'll be back tomorrow night. Appreciate everyone being here. So, anything else?
Nope.
Peace out.